How many dirty cops can one show have?
Who is targeting the special investigators?
It can't Reacher and Dixon just be together all happy like.
Will Reacher and his friends beat the bad guys?
Red and Red Real Reviews get their super sleuth on as they open up the case of Reacher Season 2 on Amazon Prime.
Question: what kind of bear is best?
When they say 2% milk, I don't know what the other 98% is.
It's a ridiculous question.
Who is it you think you see?
False. Black bear. Well, that's debatable.
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
Allergies?
Cowardice and weak-willed men. And hazelnuts.
Who the hell are you? You know.
Why have you lost your mind? Because I'll help you find it.
I didn't actually sell my last car, I just forgot where I parked it.
You have also heard the phrase, a Lannister always pays his debts.
That idea is literally the greatest idea I have ever heard in my life.
Randall, look at eye contact. You're gonna be cool, right?
Oh, baby, I'm as cool as the other side of the pillow. You feel me?
Stop pooping.
You all know exactly who I am.
Act. Bears eat beets.
Woo! That's a brilliant plan, is it?
Bears. Beets. Battlestar Galactica.
Bears do not.
Say my name.
That idea is terrible.
What is going on?
No, you clearly don't know who you're talking to, so let me clue you in.
Sexual history.
Epic and private.
I guarantee you, Toby, I've had it a billion times before. It goes like this.
Do you exercise?
Yes, lovemaking and woodworking.
Margarita, tequila soda, tequila rocks, tequila shot, hotel, sex, room service, shower sack, sewer. It's...
Oh my God.
At ease.
That's gross. I love it.
It's hard to believe we're even the same species. Baba booey.
Welcome back to episode 9, Nueve of Red and Red Real Reviews. And we're going to get some detective action on, and you of very much true crime fandom should be well at home with that.
Yes, I love it, and for obvious reasons, because Reacher is man candy. I enjoy watching this show.
the grizzly bear that he is.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah. So this series is an adaptation of a book series, and they did a film on that some years ago, starring Tom Cruise. And it's always weird to me that Tom Cruise is cast in these super masculine roles like Maverick and Top Gun and Ethan Hunt in Mission Impossible, because in reality he's this little tiny guy.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking about it, and I thought that maybe Tom Cruise, I'd have to look back, but it's possible that he was the producer on the Jack Reacher stuff. So I could see him casting himself, because if you put it in perspective, I was looking up some details. I forget who the author is of the Reacher books, but there's 28 Reacher books. And in the books, Reacher is supposed to be blonde. He's also supposed to be 6'5". So someone like Tom Cruise with dark hair and 5'7" is not close, but someone like Alan Ritchson is 6'2" and blonde. So he kind of fits the bill as far as what the author was thinking of. So who actually put Tom Cruise in this role? I'd love to know. Probably himself.
Yeah, it would have to be. And knowing how much hands-on he is behind the scenes of like Top Gun, it doesn't surprise me that he would be the same on another role like Jack Reacher.
Right. And it's almost like I would want to see that Reacher movie, because I wonder if there are any camera tricks to make him look specifically taller. Because I know that there's things that you can do on camera to make someone appear taller or just appear like they have more of a presence. And what's crazy about Alan Ritchson is he actually, you can feel his presence. He just feels like ginormous. He feels like you're in the room with him, right? Like you just, and it's funny that they make all these jokes. The villains, you know, are like, oh, the big guy, or they were kind of referred to him like he's like 300, like 300 pounds. And whenever there's a scene of Reacher standing next to or like holding a woman, it's like, it like makes me like overwhelmed because you can just sense his presence. It's like he, you know, I picture myself next to him and I'm just like, he would squish me like a bug. Like he's just so huge.
It would be like Peter Pan holding Tinkerbell.
Yes, just like, you know, just holding a lady's face in his hand, like his hand is like the size of like double the size of her head. Like I just, he's just so, he's larger than life, even in, it feels like he's right there with you. And like, it kind of makes you, gives you a presence. Like I get like a little flustered whenever there's like a love scene with Reacher. I'm just like, I like feel like I shouldn't be watching or something.
Embarrassed.
Yeah.
And it like the larger than life thing. It's weird because like when I first saw him on camera, he's walking around and he's kind of like stiff because he's the size of a bear.
He's one of those people who like walks with their kind of like their arms like permanently out because that's just how their stature is.
He reminded me a bit of Luther in the Umbrella Academy.
Yes.
And I don't think that kind of cast of, I don't think that was completely authentic. I think Alan Ritchson is actually like that, but that's the imagery I got when I first saw him on camera.
There was at the end with the scene with Dixon in like the motel room or something, I was just aghast when they showed his back. What are these muscles? It's not trapezius.
Yeah.
Traps, yeah.
Yeah.
His like he like had a huge like hunch on his back because those muscles were so big.
Yeah. It's one thing to have somebody very muscular, it's defined, but then also to have one that's just massive.
Yes, it was like literally a lump on his back because these muscles were so ginormous.
Yeah. His his shoulder blades the size of Dixon's whole upper chest.
Literally.
So full disclosure on this one, this is season 2 we're talking about. You've seen season 1, I had not, and I was under the impression that the show acted like as a standalone series, or even more so, each episode was a standalone episode, kind of like it's its own little case. Each episode's own little case, own little mystery. But this one, it was the same kind of case throughout the season. And other than flashbacks, it really wasn't hinting at anything from something the viewer may have missed if they didn't see season 1. And I kind of like that because you didn't feel lost if you just hopped right in. Which obviously that's always a fear when you hop into a show midway. What'd you miss? What are you gonna miss? And what's not gonna make sense? But this, I didn't feel lost watching the show once.
Yeah, it's really set up as a true anthology series where each, and a lot of shows, more shows are starting to be like that. I don't know if you've seen like The Sinner, or what else comes to mind as far as I know. I don't watch it, but American Horror Story, something like that. There's a new kind of theme or a new thing each season. So I think that's starting to become more popular, but the way that they seem to be doing this show, we'll talk about it more with our final thoughts, but it's interesting because, you know, the first book, the Reacher book that's out, I mentioned there were 28 books. So the first season of the show mirrored the first book. However, they didn't mirror the second book with the second season of the show. They skipped all the way to the 11th book for this one. So I don't know how that's going to affect the sequencing of things. And, you know, you can see at the beginning of each episode, it says based on this book, and it has the whole long title of what it is, but it makes me wonder what's going to happen from here. I'm pretty sure they are picked up for a season 3 for sure.
I would be curious to know what the thought process of that going in was, because you could almost think like, okay, when you start a series, when you start a show, everything's kind of an experiment. You don't know how many seasons you're gonna do, how long you get the actors under contract for, all the logistical nonsense. So maybe they say like, oh, 28. Well, that would be a long running season. We can't do
Right.
that. So maybe we'll plan for like 5 seasons or 3 seasons, and we'll do like one at the head, one in the middle, and
Right.
one at the end. And they just kind of like picked
True.
random ones that just appealed to the reader from a visual perspective. And it'll, like you said, it'll be funny if it actually goes longer than that. And they just kind of like, okay, well then we went to book 11, and then we went to book 17, and then we went back to book 3, and then we went back to book 12, book 7, book 21.
Right. Or then they might get to the point where it's like Game of Thrones, where what they're doing is new material because it doesn't follow the books at all. So if they're just going back and forth between the beginning of the books and the end of the books, and it's just everything's out of sequence, that's going to be kind of weird. So
I wish that Juju on the show.
no, I mean it's literally one of the best, has one of the best records on Amazon right now. I think on streaming in general, it's one of the top streaming shows on Amazon right now. So it's doing really well. People love it.
And
You gotta love that guy. I mean,
and I'd also hope that and I don't know, maybe I could be speaking out of ignorance here, but like I hope that maybe all the books are done, because I feel like a lot of what Game of Thrones fell into in that space was the fact that they got ahead of the author, and then he never finished it, and then they wound up in this pinning themselves into a corner.
yes. You know what? I'm pretty sure that like the 11th book or whatever came out in like 1998 or something ridiculous. So I think that these 28 books are done. I just don't know if this guy is planning on writing more, or if these have all been released over the past 20 years. It's possible.
That being said, the alternative is Yellowstone, where they finished the previous season, and then we're still waiting for the rest of the show to be done almost 2 years later. So I mean, what's really the lesser evil at that point?
I know. I hate waiting a long time. We're just not that patient.
No, we got, and that to the point where, and Prime does this, and we've spoken about this before, where they release like, they don't do like the weekly thing necessarily, but maybe they do 2 at a time. And we've gotten to the point where we're spoiled from Netflix, where we get the whole season in one shot, and we have to retrain our brains to be patient because we're just used to just binging everything.
I know. It's terrible.
Yeah. Such spoiled technology youngsters, I suppose. Now you normally do our kind of film student sesh a little later on in the show, but I thought that a big part of the show was the relationships that the characters have, that and all the members of the special investigators have. And so we'll do it a little earlier this episode. And there's a lot going on here. And the first one that stands out to me is Reacher and Dixon, because they have this kind of will they, won't they romance going on. And you want to root for them to be together, but they kind of, towards the end of the show, they didn't, but you kind of didn't feel like you almost didn't get like the super letdown, because you weren't really expecting it to work out anyway.
Right. I mean, I personally didn't want it to work out, because watching the first season, I have allegiance to my girl Roscoe. And I really liked her, and I liked her and Reacher together, like Reacher and Roscoe. It's alliteration. I liked it. So so my first impression of this Dixon was, I was like, this lady reminds me of someone, and I don't know who. And then I was thinking about it, and I was like, she looks kind of like a different, exotic looking Elizabeth Hurley. That's what she reminded me of at first. And then I'm like, okay, who is this chick? They kind of alluded to the fact that her and Reacher have a little bit of a past, where like they kind of liked each other, but they knew that they couldn't be together because there was that boss and employee relationship sort of. So I was going into it kind of being protective of Roscoe, and I know that this is an anthology series, but part of me is hoping that eventually they will throw it back to Roscoe in a future season or something. So I'm like holding out hope that he will bump into Roscoe in the future and they'll be together.
Maybe
So
on that bus he got on at the end.
I would love to think so. But I mean, so Dixon, she turned out to be nice, and I didn't have any issue with her or anything, but I think you kind of know, even at, they hook up a few times, and then even in that scene towards the end, even she jokes about it, like, oh, I'd love for you to meet my parents. And he's like, wait, what? And he thinks that she's serious for a second, and she's just messing with him. And I think they both know, and they've known for a while, even throughout this situation, that it's just, they're both not going to settle down. She's too into her work. He's just into like going where the wind blows him. So he doesn't really want to put roots in anywhere. And I think they both felt that and knew that.
Yeah, the man that travels with the same 3 articles of clothing and a toothbrush is going to go home to meet the folks. Yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
I
mean, I just have a lot of questions about that, by the way. Like, where does he get this money that he lives off of? Like, that I don't understand, but
the mysterious floating bank account.
they just don't talk about it a lot.
Yeah. And the Elizabeth Hurley thing, like I could see that. I didn't think of that, but knowing you had the comparison, I do kind of get that, because Dixon does kind of have that kind of plastic blonde runway model look to her, just as a brunette, which of course for a long time Elizabeth Hurley was that kind of it chick on the screen.
She's got like the cheekbones, and then I think she's got like blue or green eyes that are very piercing, and she's got the dark hair. So something about, not her nose, but something about her reminded me of Elizabeth Hurley.
Yeah. So so that actually I do totally get that. Now another one is the two kind of I don't want to call them two ships passing in the night, but like two kind of comparable steam trains that often kind of bump rails against each other, and that's Reacher and Russo, who's one of the lead detectives on the side, basically trying to solve the same crimes that Reacher is, but just from a more official capacity as a local beat cop, as opposed to Reacher and his team were kind of rogues on this. And they were like, I thought their combative relationship was a bit funny, because they're always like, when are we gonna have that fight?
Right.
Oh,
yeah.
well,
Threatening to beat each other up.
Yeah, let me tell you, when we have that fight, you won't survive, or you won't get a punch off, or whatever they were saying.
Yeah, that whole interaction was funny. And I actually, at first I was like, man, this guy's kind of a dick. And then as they kind of had an interesting little arc, because it didn't take a long time and it wasn't out of nowhere, but they went from kind of pretty much hating each other to actually respecting each other, which I wish we had more time with Russo. And I wish we had, like, by the time his life had run its course and he was just doing everything he could to protect that little girl, it's like, really? Like, that's the person that has to die off? Come on.
Yeah. we got
attached to him.
Yeah. And especially because in his parallel with his mentor, I suppose you'd call Officer Marsh, where they were supposed to, he was trying to look out for him, but he was looking out for him in a very kind of seedy way, and trying to get him to just kind of take the reins and follow his lead a little bit. And that you start to root for him more, because like, no, this is a good guy, I can root for him.
Right. He's not going to go over to the other side. He's not going to take the bait. He's going to continue to be a stand-up guy, and look where it got him. It got him nowhere.
Right. And that's kind of tugs at the heartstrings, I guess.
It does. Well, we'll talk a little bit more about that in the next topic, but let's talk about Neely. She's a big chunk of the relationship portion of this show.
Which is a weird framing to put on her, of course, because relationship, you think closeness, that sort of thing, and she's terrified to touch anyone.
Yeah, it's one of those things. you know, she was in the first season a little bit, and she mentions it in the second season towards the end, and she says, hey, come on, don't let this be a every few years kind of thing. I want to hear from you more than that, and let's keep in touch a little bit better than we have in the past. And I think that's kind of how their relationship always had been. It's like, oh, I need a favor or I need help with something, I'll see you every few years. Then after that, it's like, bye, see ya.
Yeah,
And
if
she
I need you,
actually,
I'll encode a message on an ATM receipt.
yeah, like she wants more than that of the friendship. And what's funny to me is she knows how he functions. She knows he's just I got my toothbrush and the clothes on my back, and that's how I function. But she kind of wants more from him. She wants more out of the friendship. But that being said, they don't really state it, or she doesn't really talk about her preferences, but they kind of don't they sort of allude to the fact that she doesn't find Reacher appealing because he's, you know, like that's just not, that would be like barking up the wrong tree for her.
There was the one scene where he was camping out in her apartment. I was thinking of my, like, way early on before they had found O'Donnell, before they had found Dixon. And they're sitting there, and he goes out to get snacks or something, or a drink or whatever the case may be. I almost got like, are they gonna get sexual with these two like this earlier in the show? It's only the second episode.
I kind of thought that for a second too, and I was like, that would be really weird. I hope that's not going to happen. It just she sort of has a masculine energy.
Yeah,
right?
Especially as it goes along, and not just masculine, but almost juvenile in some ways too. Because whenever she wants a meal, she goes, was it Pops, Puffs, or Pebbles in that order, asking for cereal. And when they have to find the Marlo Burns and her daughter, her first instinct is to play video games, and she winds up getting the IP address, and she's like, oh, by the way, the kid's not very good. So she's like a hardcore gamer at that as well.
She's kind of a woman child, isn't she?
Yeah. Oh, that's a new term. We'll patent that.
I just coined it right here.
Well, coining things. Now, I think something that this show kind of coined quite a bit of is corruption. And a lot of different levels of this. There's several different areas of this that we can go into. There's these there was, and one actually I didn't even write down on my notes. It just dawned on me that when the special investigators got shut down, or the 110th at the time, I suppose, when they got shut down, and their superior officer, who when he was introduced to the show didn't exactly seem like a bad guy, but he tried to shut down their last op because it was going to cost the senior officer his promotion. So that was more of a side story, but obviously the big ones were this revelation of Langston as the head of this group of dirty cops, that they pick up news of this missile program that kind of got pushed through seedy channels in Congress, and they find a way to they all quit the force at the same time. They go work for New Age Technologies, they get the chips, and then the story takes off. And then it goes over to this AM character, this alias fellow, who's we're kind of following him along on the side throughout the whole thing and trying to figure out what his deal is. And we almost kind of get misled a little bit because we think he's the head honcho, but he's really just pressing the buttons and kind of puppet dance a little bit.
He's just a player, but I'm pretty sure, I didn't look up who the actor is, but I'm pretty sure that same actor has played either like a total creep or a serial killer or someone not nice and some other thing. I just can't place where he's from, but he's been sketchy in other things.
Total creep.
He just has that look.
Yeah. So what I guess the first question is, like, as far as this relates to following the storyline, which level of corruption was the worst, the deepest, which one probably should have been the most integral part of the story.
There's a lot of layers. I mean, there's the police corruption, there's the government corruption, there's the corporate corruption with the technology company. What else?
And Russo's mentor.
Yeah. That one was one of the worst ones for me, but having someone oversee your career like that and be like family to you and then just completely screw you over. I was glad that Reacher shot him.
Not once, but twice.
Yeah.
Because you had the initial time where he didn't directly screw over Russo, but Russo confided in him Russo confided him where Reacher and the team were going, and he went ahead and called in that biker gang, which was a really cool fight scene, by the way.
Yeah.
Called in a biker gang to ambush them at the bar, and then again at the end, which wound up with Russo losing his life because he still, for whatever reason, was grasping onto this thread of hope that Russo was gonna take a more selfish route and just take a payout from Langston, and they'd kind of be buddies in dirtiness.
Yeah, and I think when it turns personal like that, that's when corruption is the worst. When it's something like a company just screwing over its employees or something like that, that's another thing. Something speaking to corporate greed or something like that. But when it's someone who you've known for years, like who has had dinner with your family, that's just a whole nother level of corruption. So I would say that mentor-mentee type of corruption was the worst of the layers of corruption in this show.
And yeah, and they're also, now that I think of there was some part of it that came around as a bit of comeuppance, because towards the end, Reacher of course dials into Lavoie thinking he's an ally, send me your SS agents, and they take out AM, they shoot down the chopper, and next thing you know, they turn around and all the SS agents are standing there, guns drawn on the special investigators. And of course, Reacher almost, like, I don't know if he thought they were going to do that or he was just hedging his bets, but he had to call into Homeland Security. They come in, save the day.
Oh, he was definitely anticipating that, but I wasn't. I was, when they turned with the guns, I was like, no. And when he said that, I was glad that he anticipated it, and he had a sense that they were in on it, and Senator Lavoie was as well.
Yeah. Good. Well, that's what you get for trusting a politician, I guess.
Yeah.
Now, lastly, of course, with AM, he kind of, throughout the show, we thought he was the main bad guy, and kind of came back around to maybe being Langston, maybe being Lavoie, but more of a shadow main villain. But AM kind of, I don't necessarily want to say it was a letdown, but it was kind of like, well, we followed this guy thinking he was the main villain, and he's just like a bankroller almost. He's just transactional in this relationship.
Right. He was just the money part of it. But he met a pretty grisly end with basically the firing squad. That's what I'd call it, the firing squad. That was ridiculous. I kind of wish Langston would have had an end like that, because I really think he was the main villain after all. He was a bad guy.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. When they just unloaded on AM, it was just like, my first thought was like, well, they didn't hold back.
That was my first thought. My second thought was, how do they film stuff like this when they fill people full of bullet holes? How do they do that?
Well, it's always two shots, They never show them getting shot at the same time. At least for a TV series. Maybe in the movies they got more money to play with.
True. It's just, how do they do it? I just have so many questions with bullets and guns in movies and things like that. I don't know how it's done. I still don't know.
Yeah, and you're right about the Langston's ending being a bit underwhelming, especially considering the fact that the AM arc went the way it did, and it was kind of clear that Langston was the main guy. Like even like the fight when they were trying to set him up with Marlowe, that got cut short because the tip came in and he wound up escaping, and then he had the fight in the lab, and he's just running around the thing, so you never really got this like climactic battle, fight between him and Reacher. And then on the plane, Reacher's getting his ass kicked a little bit, mostly by Langston's henchman.
Yeah.
Dixon wipes him out, and then Reacher just gets up, punches Langston a couple times, and whoop, throws him out the back end. I'm like, well, I want to see more. This guy was a dirtbag. I want to see him get his ass kicked a little bit more.
Yeah, you didn't get that true like one-on-one, face-to-face like brawl.
Yeah. Now maybe I wouldn't have been. Now maybe I would have been a bit one-sided because you have Reacher, who's this polar bear, and Lavoie, who's this old man. But
right.
At least let me see a little bit.
That's why he needed the henchman, I think. But I was glad to see that after he was thrown out of the plane, Langston, they did show him being like gone for real on the ground. So I was like, phew, I was like, there is no way that this guy can come back.
No. He's 6
like
feet
like a shredder style, hand out of the mound of dirt or whatever it was.
Iconic, cinematic.
Why is that the reference that I come up with? Why is that the first thing that comes to mind when you think of people who like aren't quite dead?
It just means you were raised in the right era. That's all. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Praise be.
Guess so.
Anyway, now this wasn't a comedy by any stretch of the imagination. But it wasn't short of its share of funny lines. There are a lot of one-liners, and there are a lot more than even I wrote down. But what were some of your favorites? Some of your favorite lines from this one?
Oh man, there were so many. It's just in every scene there's a few, but there were a couple interactions that I liked. One of them was towards the end. They Neely and Reacher were overseeing these bratty teenager kids kind of abuse or heckle the security guard who was standing next to the fence, and that kind of gave Reacher an idea of what to do with this grand plan. So I loved when that whole plan was carried out. You could tell that it had something to do with music because the kids were blasting music. So when that plan was carried out and Reacher makes a comment like, "Oh, Jefferson Airplane, huh?" And Neely says, "Yeah, well, I agree with Swan. Hendrix is overrated." That whole interaction, I was like, yes, he is. He's so overrated. I love that whole interaction. And I just liked the fact that you kind of got a little glimpse into who they are as people because, they're talking about the music that they like or don't like.
And if you like Jimi Hendrix, let us know in the comments and tell us that we're wrong.
I know. Sorry. I know he was gone too soon, but I honestly, I can probably name one Jimi Hendrix song.
One of the ones that stuck in my brain, and it was so early on, and it was funny because of the actor that played Langston. But they were talking on the phone. They asked him some character, which I forgot what it was, and he shot it down. And then they asked him something about Sarah Connor, and he's like, "Sarah Connor, never heard of her." And I'm thinking in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I know this guy. Who is this? And then it dawned on me that it was T-1000 that he's T-1000 from Terminator 2, and I'm like, that's hilarious. That's like some what's the word? Fourth dimensional kind of meta reference.
Yeah, you know what? That went right over my head because when I was looking at Langston the whole time, I was mistaking him for the guy from American Beauty for some reason. So I didn't even place that he was the Terminator. Oh man, but that was a good joke. I like when shows make references to the actor's other projects or previous projects. I think that's funny.
But you at least knew that he had to be from the Terminator, from Sarah Connor, right?
Yes. I mean, I looked it up because I was like, isn't that guy from American Beauty? He kind of looks similar in the face to this other actor.
Yeah.
But well, yeah, once I realized who he was, I was like, yes, that's why he looked so familiar to me.
And that may have been there. I mean, we've talked about this a little bit in the past as far as shows using kind of fresh faces. This show had mostly fresh faces. There weren't a lot of
Yes.
established actors in this.
The only person who I think I've seen previously was the guy who played O'Donnell.
He looked familiar too, but I didn't know if I knew him or he just had a familiar face.
Right. He hadn't been in anything super huge. He'd been in a couple of like kind of drama, kind of smutty TV shows. I think he was in like the revival of Melrose Place or something. Trying to remember what he was in. Kind of one of those like night soap kind of shows. But he's definitely been in a few things, but he was really the only one.
That actually be pretty funny because his past keeps getting alluded to as a playboy. So his character does have a little bit of a smutty reputation.
Yeah, very true.
One I also got a kick out of, and it was when Russo it was early on in Russo and Reacher's relationship where obviously they're trying to solve the same thing, but they keep getting in each other's way, and he tells them like, don't pull any cowboy shit, yada yada yada. And they go about their business like, all right, boss, what are we gonna do? And the episode, of course, ends like this. He just looks at the camera, a whole lot of cowboy shit. And there are a couple times cowboy shit came up later on, and I was like, that is a great line, especially since he's this big, rough, rugged guy, you know, kind of like Rip Wheeler on steroids without the cowboy hat.
He says a lot of funny things, but what's funny to me is I don't know if you follow Alan Richson, but it kind of seems like there's very little separation between their sense of humor between Alan Richson and Reacher, the character he plays. He's sort of a sarcastic, funny guy, but it's just funny because he's a man of faith in real life. So for him to say the F word, or you know what I mean, to swear and stuff like that, that's what's sort of strange, because then you see that it's Reacher, it's not Alan Richson. So but I definitely think the sense of humor is coming directly from him. There, you just can't tell where the character ends and the person begins.
The best castings are the ones that the actor can more or less be authentic, right?
Right.
And we talked about that a little bit during the Golden Globes with Kieran Culkin in Succession playing Roman, and seeing his mannerisms walking up on stage to accept this award. It's like, oh my God, he's really Roman.
Right. And like, aside from all the violence and swearing, he is Reacher.
Yeah, 100% to the T. You wrote down one that may not necessarily a funny line, but a poignant one that keeps coming up throughout the show. And the details matter because Dixon is kind of an accountant, plays an accountant role on the team.
Yes.
And so that keeps getting brought up. And the other one, seeing your note, the other one to me that always got brought up was Assumption's Kill.
Yeah, that one, I'm not sure if there's a story with that one that will be revealed, but Details Matter was sort of a big reveal because in the first season, Reacher said that to, I think, Roscoe and Finley. He said details matter. So it's showing that this season showed that Dixon is the one who originally came up with that, and she said it to Reacher, so he started saying it. So that was kind of a little nugget and in like a little reveal, because that was something that we had heard in the first season.
Dang it, Reacher, you copycat.
Yeah. He's a poser.
Yeah.
I love that word.
Now, as far as looking ahead to future Reacher seasons, I mean, whether it's confirmed or not, we kind of expect there to be more of this, and obviously with the whole book series thing, there's certainly going to be plenty of material to base off to base off future seasons. So what do you kind of think? I mean, we obviously going back to the top of the show, we have different perspectives, having one watch season one, the other not.
Right.
And for me, as far as if they took anything out, if they take anything out of this season to repurpose, at least the core of the team is intact. You know, obviously a lot of the special investigators bit the bullet, either before the season or kind of off camera out of story, and it was just referenced. But Dixon's still around, O'Donnell's still around, Neely's still around, and obviously Reacher. So at least there's kind of a core group there to preserve into whatever comes next.
Right. I think we'll see these people again. I don't know how much we'll see of them. It's possible Finley had a little bit of a cameo in this season. I was explaining that to you because you didn't recognize who he was. So it's possible they could bring Finley back, they could bring back Roscoe, they could bring back Dixon or all the other special investigators. For some reason, I think that I'm not so sure that they would bring Dixon back. We may see O'Donnell. I think if we're going to see anyone again, it's probably going to be Neely.
I would think so too, because like you were saying, as far as she kind of wants more of a friendship with Reacher, she also kind of seemed like she had a higher rank in his unit. So that would make sense that there would be some kind of connect the dots full circle for just based on her position within the original special investigators, the 110th, that something of a professional link would bring her back into a future op.
Right. And it seemed like she was kind of his, and she's always kind of been his right-hand woman. He knows he can trust her to get the job done and to help him do it efficiently. So I could definitely see him needing her help in the future. I hope they bring back Roscoe at some point.
I was gonna say, you're really banking on this one, aren't you?
I'm really invested in it. As the kids say, I'm shipping it.
Oh, yes.
I ship Roscoe and Reacher. I do not ship Reacher and Dixon. No.
It took me a lot longer in my life to learn what shipping meant than I care to admit.
I unfortunately know.
Now, as far as the overall theme, military detective combos, it can be repurposed, and obviously content wise, it's certainly not that hard to come up with a storyline of some crime mystery or a terror threat. I mean, you lose count of the amount of shows in the past that have been based on terror threats and military threats. So there's certainly not going to be short of content, even if it were to be something off the books, no pun intended, from the book series.
Yeah, I think wherever they go with a third season, and I believe I'm 97% sure that there is a third season already being greenlit, but I think that in the third season, a place we might go to is one of those military situations or terrorist or whatever situations that you mentioned, because the first and the second season have both been kind of personal situations to Reacher. The first season talked about his brother and his brother's death. The second season talked about some members, his friends, some members of the special investigators strangely dying or being targeted. So I'm wondering if they're going to shift the focus away from being personal to Reacher to maybe being something of like an organization problem with, the military or someone in the military or who's attacking the military or something like that, where he can pitch in and help. So we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, and that loyalty matters to Reacher because throughout the show, as the rest of the team and Russo, and even as certain evidence starts to maybe lend a little credence to it, everyone's questioning Swan, and Reacher never really questioned Swan.
Yes.
He always kind of thinks that still has this benefit of the doubt that, okay, whatever he was doing, he must have been doing it for some altruistic reason or to set up something else. Even he sees him in that big picture at New Age Technology, at the New Age Technology's office. Swan gets name dropped by that gunman from Franz's funeral. But he still always has this kind of sense of loyalty to the team and his other crewmates.
Right, and he gets mad when everyone else is questioning what Swan's intentions are. Everyone sort of thinks, well, this is looking pretty bad that he's doing bad stuff, and the whole time he didn't waver, and he was kind of angry and frustrated with them for doubting that.
Right. And as opposed to Franz, who's like everyone's perfect little idol.
Franzi, yeah.
Franzi, yeah. Uses Reacher as his password.
Yeah.
Well, next up on Red and Red, we're switching it up from a detective series to fantasy series. And I guess it'll be our first review of a Disney Plus series. With Percy Jackson.
Woo-woo.
This will be I'm aware of the Percy Jackson storyline, but I never watched the movies, so the series the series will be kind of I guess a new-ish thing to me, but I do like fantasy series, so
yeah, it'll be fun, and I think it's intended for teenagers, so
oh, Disney.
But it's cool. It's got the mythology stuff, which is really interesting, so we'll have fun with that one. So watch it all when it ends next week and tune in with us.
Yeah, I don't know if I ever told you that, but Egyptian mythology and Greek mythology, I was very fascinated with that as a youngster.
Yes. You should watch Blood of Zeus then. That's another recommendation for you.
Show?
Yes. Have you heard of this show?
No, Netflix? Gotta be Netflix.
Netflix, yes. It's a second season is about to come out soon. It's great.
Maybe we'll put it on the calendar.
Yes. I think we should.
Yes. We'll put us on the calendar. Follow along with our adventures and opinions on Instagram and TikTok. My cohort is Binge the Ginge. Dots between the words on Instagram, but one word on TikTok. And myself, yours truly, is Nutmeg 2 Palmetto. One word, number 2. Follow us across those platforms. And stay tuned to the show's adventures as well. All of our platforms, video-wise, if you want to see the flaming red ginger hair, YouTube and Rumble, and audio-wise, if you're on the go and just need our lovely voices to keep you company, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. Until the next real review, Red and Red, signing out.
Signing out.
In less than an hour, aircraft from here will join others from around the world. And you will be launching the largest aerial battle in the history of mankind.
Hey guys, you ready to let the dogs out?
What?
Do what?
I'd like to be pimps from Oakland or cowboys from Arizona, but it's not Halloween.
Let the dogs out, you know, like, who let the dogs out? Who?
Who brought this guy along?
Slow ahead. I can go slow ahead. Come on down and chum some of this shit.
Grow up, Peter Pan. Count Chocula.
X never, ever marks the spot.
One more thing. Do me a favor. Don't go chasing waterfalls.
You did it. You crazy son of a bitch, you did.
Mankind, that word should have new meaning for all of us today. We can't be consumed by our petty differences anymore.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
No. Try not. Do. Or do not. There is no try.
All right. Then you do us proud. Because I don't want no scrubs.
Don't act so surprised, Your Highness. You weren't on any mercy mission.
Not from tyranny, oppression, or persecution, but from annihilation. We're fighting for our right to live.
Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
I'll take care, all right? Nothing but love. Nothing but love.
10. X marks the spot.
Have any clue what's about to happen to him?
Oh, not a chance in hell. Good night.
Peace!
Fire, you son of a...
Hey,
Ain't too proud to beg.
Come on.
What?
It's not funny anymore.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not trying
TLC
to.
references.
Still, nothing. I swear to you.
But as the day when the world declared in one voice, we will not go quietly into the night, we will not vanish without a fight, we're going to live on. We're going to survive. Today, we celebrate our Independence Day.